Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're gonna go ahead and do the December wrap up. I know we have a few more days left in December, but even though I'm currently in the middle of reading some books, I know I'm not gonna finish them by the end of the year, and that's okay because those will end up on the January TBR. But with that being said, I did it. I completed my Goodreads reading challenge. My goal for the year of 2021 was 150 books, and I read 152. So exciting. And yeah, I think I'm going to definitely up my reading goal for next year. We shall see. I've got some pretty ambitious ideas. So let's just go ahead and get into the reading wrap up. So I want to actually talk about the three smutty novellas I read. I decided that I wanted to read some of the like Santa smutty books that I kept seeing on TikTok, and they didn't disappoint, although some, in my opinion, were better than others. So let's just get right into it. The first one I actually read was The Naughty List by Ellie Mae McGregor. I rated that about 4 stars. This one was, pretty much all of these were really short, but in my opinion, I think the first one, if it wasn't technically the shortest, it was the quickest to read. I feel like it got straight to the point, and I really liked that. Basically, you're following our main character, Kate. She is home alone for Christmas. She's a single mom, and her kids are away with her ex-husband right now. And, you know, after she just gave herself a wild, crazy, screaming oh, she falls asleep on the sofa, and who the night before Christmas is popping up in her home? Santa. And he sees this boobalicious woman. He thinks that she's so fine. And, you know, one thing leads to another. They're knocking boots. And they even knock boots in the sleigh. And I thought that was really interesting. I really liked it because even though we got a little bit of a backstory about both of them, Santa, and it's not Santa, I just can't remember what he goes by. I liked the fact that in this one, Santa Claus is like Santa's son. And the way that it works in this like universe is pretty much every man in the family eventually becomes Santa Claus. So he has a brother. I think his brother was Santa Claus at some point. So that was kind of like interesting. And then the backstory of Kate, it's not too much like, okay, we know this. So I definitely would recommend it if you want something that's short and to the point. The smuttiness, the sexiness, the spice level, I think it was pretty good. To be fair, I think it was pretty kind of vanilla compared to the next one that I read. But not that bad. Next, I read Santa Claus is Going to Town on Me by Marie Lipscomb. I rated that like 3 stars. It was more like a 2-star, but I was being generous on Goodreads and I gave it 3 because I didn't like hate it, but to be fair, I did skim part of it. This one we're following our main character, Holly, who also is alone on Christmas Eve, except she's not a single mom. And the thing about this one was also considered a novella, but I swear it felt like it took me days to read it because we just got way too much background on Holly, and it was like some resentment towards Santa Claus, like internal hatred of, not hatred, but sadness on Christmas because of like this thing that happened when she was a child. And yet, even though she like low-key like really didn't fuck with Santa like that, even though obviously she didn't think it was real, I thought it was very interesting that her first reaction when seeing good-looking Santa was to get on her knees and just be ready to go to town on him. That was weird to me. It just kind of, I don't know what it was, but I was like, why are we so ready and willing for Santa? And then the thing I didn't like about this one is that Santa is a, you know, centuries old being, which makes sense. Then there's some sci-fi going on, which obviously would have to be at Santa. I mean, that's not real. But then, you know, we're going back and forth to the North Pole. We're discovering things about our past. I mean, I just did not care to know about the personal issue of why she doesn't like Christmas. Even though they still had sex, I was just kind of like, why? Why do I need to know this? Maybe if it had been longer, maybe that was the whole point. But I wouldn't want to read a long Santa smut book, if I'm being honest with you. So I didn't rate it very high. It was my least favorite of the 3 that I read, just because I do not care. I do not care. And if you've read it, you probably know what I'm talking about. I don't care for Holly's personal stuff. And it's really sad. It was like a very sad thing to bring up after Santa was just in you. And then, you know what? And I gave a review on this on Instagram. At one point, Santa asks, like, what are we? What are we? I'm not even going to go into a rant because I definitely was like, this is just too much for me. I did not like it. And then the third one I read was Santa's Helper by Shay Sanders. I rated that 3 stars. Now this one was cool because it wasn't like Santa Claus as a mythical being that's like, I'm sorry, I didn't even mention this. In the second book, the Santa Claus is going to town on me, Santa, obviously if he comes through your chimney, he's, you know, going to get smaller. He definitely changed his shape. Dear God. Anyway, yeah, so the cool thing about Santa's Helper is that they're just human beings. There's no like science fiction-y situation. We're following our main character, Felina. She is also a single mom. She has her kids and she is determined to go back to her hometown after her divorce to get pictures with a black Santa Claus. That's what she did for her whole life. And she's known the man who usually is Santa Claus like since she was a kid. She even dated his son. But when she gets there, she realizes that it's not the dad anymore. It's her ex-boyfriend, original Santa's son. And she can't help but notice that he is so good looking. So they connect, they little reconnect. That was really cute. They reminisce a bit. And eventually, of course, they hook up after she does him a favor and acts as his Mrs. Claus when his other partner basically gets sick. So I really liked it. I thought it was really nice. It was a nice switch up from reading the other 2, where this is more of like a connection between 2 people. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm just hot for Santa right now because I'm alone right now. This was more like we already had a connection and I missed you. And I just thought it was really cute. I rated that one 3 stars. I would definitely recommend it. And that one, much like the first one, I got through very quickly. Now, I will say the one thing that I did not like was that at one point she calls him daddy. And if there's one thing that is a turnoff for me, it is calling a man daddy. That is disgusting to me. I would never do it. I did ask some people on Book Talk who like read a bunch of smut, did they have any suggestions for like more female dominant stories, because I really don't like reading erotica where a woman is submissive. That's just my personal preference. So it was still like really great, like spicy scene, but it just took me out of it because I cannot stand when someone says daddy. That's just me. If you like it, then you'll love it. If not, you'll be like me and you'll be like, I'm just gonna switch the plate page over. I don't like that. But still really, really good. I would recommend as a Christmassy, smutty situation for you to read next year. Next up, I read books 1 and 2, The Girls in Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagan. This was actually really good. I started Girls in Paper and Fire at the end of November. End of November, finished it at the beginning of December, and then quickly picked up the second book. I am really happy to say that I got the third book for Christmas, and I am going to make that something that I read in January because I want to finish this series and not do what I've been doing for a long time and just keeping a bunch of fantasy series unread. I'm not gonna do that. But I will say, at the time that I started this, I did not realize that this was a trilogy. I thought it was a duology. So I didn't like the second book as much as I liked the first one, but that's okay. We'll get into it. So Girls of Paper and Fire is following a young girl named Lee. She is a human. The way that this world is set up is by 3 caste system. So humans are the lowest, they're the paper caste. Then it's Moon and Steel, I believe, Moon is like a hybrid between demons, creatures slash humans. So you might have someone who's like human slash cheetah. I don't know, but they're leaning more towards human. So they'll have some other like features that make them look more, maybe they'll have ears that are like a cheetah, fur, spots, but they're kind of leaning more towards human. And then you have steel cast, I believe, and I could be wrong. Correct me in the comments if you know. That one is like, I think it's still a hybrid, but it's more demon than human. But I will say I could not picture any of the people who are not human in my head. At one point somebody is half eagle and I was like, I can't see that for some reason. So that's just a little thing for me. Anyway, so Lee, she's a human. She's like 16 years old and she's living in this village that's kind of like a little ways away from the kingdom. Like I said, humans are like the least respected class. They're enslaved in some cases. And another thing that happens to paper girls is some of them can be forced into prostitution as concubines for the king. And in this case, Lee is taken from her village and forced into being a paper girl against her will, unlike some of the other girls who are paper girls as well, who basically like their families kind of offered them up to them. So it's not really consensual because, like, let's be honest, come on. But they are kind of like aware of what's going to happen versus Lee, who was literally taken from her family. The other really crappy part about that is that her mother several years ago was also taken. Now, she doesn't know if she was killed, if she was forced into being a paper girl of some kind or not, but there's obviously a lot of hatred toward the king and the kingdom for doing that. When she becomes a paper girl, she meets a bunch of girls that are her age and younger. And I will say this, content warning for obviously child abuse because they're minors, sexual assault. It is implied, but it's not explicitly shown, but the girls are treated horrifically. The king is very violent and his whole thing is when he gets in a mood, he wants to break people. So even though you do not hear and read the things that happen to them, in the end, they are very traumatized. So if that's going to be a trigger for you, just know going in that that is a part of what's going to happen. And in the second book, we're dealing with the trauma of what has happened to Lee and the person that she ends up with after everything that happens. So it's very, very dark. And it reminded me of how much darker the Gilded Ones became. Like, obviously in that book, these girls are killed if you find out that they're not just human. And one of our, your main character is tortured. And of course she deals with that PTSD. So it's got a really serious like undertone there. Same thing here. But Lee ends up kind of stumbling into being a part of the revolution to take down the king. So that's the first book. The second book is escaping the palace with someone else. I'm not going to say their names, so I don't want to give it away. Even though I'm sure you'll figure it out very easily. I was very quick to see who the ally was going to be in the first book. But the second book is trying to rally the other clans to take down the king and basically make it so the paper caste is not enslaved anymore, and that they can go back to the way it was before all of this happened, before like the demon clan took over everything. And ultimately, I really like the series so far. So the first book I rated 4 stars. The second book I rated 3 stars. I said this on Twitter. I realized that for me, I think when it comes to a trilogy, I'm not really a fan because a lot of the times the second book feels like filler. And of course, we're not at the end yet. So some of this got a little boring. I did skip, lead training again and again and again. There were some things that were, very interesting. Some things I guessed at, some things I didn't. But I still think it was a good book. So I'm really excited to see how it ends. I cannot wait to see how the series ends because obviously there's something more to Lee. I mean, we keep bringing it up. Her eyes are golden. That's part of the reason why she's taken from the village anyway, because she looks so different. She doesn't look like she's just human. So I feel like, okay, there has to be something more there, even though we haven't gotten to that point. And I swear if we do not, if that is just constantly referenced and we do not find out what the problem is, I'm going to be annoyed. But yeah, and I would just like to say, I took the dust jackets off, and these are really pretty covers. I took the dust jacket off of the 3rd book too. Really, really pretty. So yes, I would recommend this series so far. It's really good. Next up, I read Death by Dumpling by Vivian Chen. This was the first in her series of the Noodle Shop Mystery. So this is a cozy mystery that I found in Second & Charles. I just could not pass up the cover and the name. If you're someone who likes cozy mysteries, then like, you know, they get you with the name and the cover. They're just always like, it's always a hit, never a miss, in my opinion. And so many of them make me laugh. Anyway, this was really great. So obviously this is the first book in the series. This is the first book I've read by Vivian Chen. It was really, really good. So this is about Lana. She had a bad breakup. She comes and works at her family's noodle shop in this like kind of a plaza with a bunch of different Asian-owned businesses. And what ends up happening is the landlord or the owner, essentially the person who's like the boss, ends up dying after supposedly eating something from her restaurant. So she and the chef are implicated in his murder, and she is trying to work tirelessly to clear her name and find out who really killed the owner, because she does not want to go to jail. Now, this was really interesting. I really liked her as a character. I liked her dynamic with her friend Megan, who's her roommate. The family was very funny. I kind of saw who the killer would be, but I think it gave enough twists that it was really, really interesting. I really liked what Vivian Chen did with this book. And I've already decided, even though I already own the 2nd book, because I got that one at the Second & Charles, I decided I'm going to read the whole series. I really, really liked it. I think this came out in 2013, and I will say it did kind of, you know, obviously Arsenic and Adobo was most recent. They did kind of remind me of each other, you know, daughter, breakup, working in her family's restaurant, her and her friend have to solve a murder where she's implicated in it. But at the end of the day, I still really like that. It's kind of predictable, but it is what it is. So this was 5 stars for me. And last, I read volumes 7 through 12 of One Piece. I am really enjoying it. I cried at least twice. The first time when we find out what happens to Nami's mother, that had me crying. And then in, I think it was volume 12 when we meet the whale, that had me crying too. So far, I'm really enjoying reading the series. I still don't know if I'll ever watch the show, but I will say that the series is really, really fun to read. And I definitely think I'm going to continue with the series. So I basically finished the East Blue arc, is what it seems like. Yeah, so contains the last volumes of the East Blue saga. So that's really cool. I don't know where we are off to now, but we're on the Grand Line, and we're hopefully going to see what we're going to find. I know we have to meet a few more characters. My husband's favorite character is Chopper, so I don't know when we meet that creature. That's like a reindeer that ate the devil fruit. It's One Piece, you know, it's got some crazy ass situations. But anyway, yes, I would say so far, I don't really rate manga, but I mean, I guess if I had to give it a rating, it's 5 stars so far. I really like it. I love the characters. The stories are actually really good. And of course, like, I've gotten emotional a few times as I've read this. So I think it's pretty good. I would absolutely recommend it. My husband will recommend you watch it though. So agree to disagree. So yes, that was my reading wrap up. Was there any of the books that I read you've read that you want to read? If you have read any of them, I'd love to know what you think about them, what your ratings were for some of them. And I will be filming some more videos because I have the week off and I'm so excited. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Please have a good day. If you like the video, please like the video. If you like it, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Do what you will. But thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.